Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
Back at you and Gloves Off. I'm Paul Buitrón. I have a great guest. He has his own podcast. His name is Stephen Yearout, and his podcast name is Empowered Dyslexia. And we're going to touch base on this subject that affects many in the United States. How are we doing today? You doing great?
I'm doing great. Hey, thanks for having me come on here. I know we've been trying to get together for a while now to do a show together. To jump right into this, you hit the nail right on the head. If you think that you don't know somebody with dyslexia, you're mistaken, because dyslexia affects 1 in 5. 20% of the population has dyslexia. And many people, including myself, even with being somebody with dyslexia, we were told for so long that it's just reversing your numbers. Don't worry about it. It'll go away, this, that, and the other. However, none of that is true. And, we really trust our education system to be the experts on education, on learning how to read, learning how to spell, math. And when we start really diving into it, Paul, our education system is broken.
Sure. And you can see it. I found out about dyslexia through the Scottish Rite, and Traveling Man, and I saw what they did with the dyslexia school in San Antonio was wonders. What they've done with it, and that's when I really first found out what the name of a problem was. I knew something was there, but didn't understand it. Right? And you are correct. Dyslexia affects one out of 5. There's many of us that have it, but there's also a huge spectrum. Correct? Let's explain that there's different levels of dyslexia.
So there is a line of thinking that dyslexia is on a spectrum, because you can have problems with phonemic awareness, meaning not being able to recognize when sounds change in a word, but your comprehension's good. Or you may have an issue in this little smaller area over here, which affects everything behind it. Reading language is built on each other, much like math is, right? The problem that we run into is we tend to say that everything is dyslexia. I can't tie my shoes. I don't know my left from right. Well, dyslexia, by its namesake, dyslexia without language. Lexia being able to read. Now, not being able to read doesn't mean that you can't learn to read. Completely different. We are able to be taught to read and spell just like everybody else can. People without a dyslexia or ADHD or autism or anything like that. However, what ends up happening in our school systems every day is our teachers aren't taught what it is. They're not taught how to spot it. They're not taught how to work with children with dyslexia. They're not even taught how to work with parents who have dyslexia. And the issue that we're seeing today is parents are going into the school system and saying, Mr. or Mrs., teacher or principal or whoever, little Johnny has some issues. He's failing. He's falling further and farther behind in school. And let's use the K through 3rd grade, because 3rd grade seems to be the pivotal time where most kids are identified, and I'll get to why that is here in just a second. But the parents are coming in going, hey, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. What can we do? And the teachers that don't know, they generally will say, no, he's just like, or she's like everybody else. Everybody's having problems reading. Everybody's having problems spelling. And they push those identification, the identification of dyslexia or learning disability out so far. If you get identified in the third grade, well, you've already had 4 years of failure if you started in kindergarten. Well, what does that look like to the human psyche that you're being put in a stressful situation, being going into school where you're supposed to perform at a certain level, and for whatever reason, being dyslexia, we're not able to perform like the people, our peers, the people that are sitting next to us. So what do you think happens? Of course, these kids get in trouble. They act out. They're bored. They don't, I mean, think about if you were stuck in a basket weaving class, whatever, and you have no interest in it whatsoever. Do you think you're really going to learn something?
Right.
So, and the reason why third grade is so pivotal for kids is because K through third, you're learning to read. Above third grade, you're reading to learn. So that's when the wheels just shoot off the bus. So, we as parents have to look at the telltale signs of our children that are struggling in school and not allow anybody to push us off and say, no, they're fine. They're just young. They're a boy and they're not mature enough yet. They're this, they're that. We need to be making sure that our children are provided the support that they need today, not tomorrow. I mean, I look at it as the same way if my child was diabetic, if my child had asthma, if my child had whatever, I'm going to get services today and I'm not going to wait for it.
Absolutely. You see, that's what a lot of people do not understand. They let this linger and fester, then all of a sudden you have a problem. You're in junior high, you're in high school, now there's a problem.
Well, I mean, Paul, we look at just looking at the raw numbers. Texas has 5.5 million kids. We already said that dyslexia affects 1 in 5 or 20%, right? Well,
So
can
you
you? It should be about 1 million kids.
Yeah.
Do you know how many today, right now, that Texas shows as being identified as dyslexic in those 5.5 million kids? Take a wild guess.
Probably not even more than 50,000.
Right now, because of all the heat that Texas is in around dyslexia and providing support for children with learning disabilities, they have identified like 200, and I believe it's 219,000 something. So it's less than 5%.
Yeah.
But
here goes another one. Several years ago, especially when you brought it up and dyslexia was, people were paying more attention to it, I would say about 5 years ago. Okay, to the forward, to the present, and all of a sudden, every kid that you saw had dyslexia. So I don't know if the school systems were just placing kids in dyslexia programs just to fit a quorum. You know what I'm saying?
So it would be easy to go down that path to say, oh, well, everybody's dyslexic now, whatever, right? But Paul, if we're at less than 5%, and we only identified 219,000 kids, where's the other 800,000 kids that are dyslexic?
Absolutely.
I can tell you where a lot of them ended up. A lot of them ended up in prison, because we have studies that were done here in Texas that shows that over 50% of our Texas inmates have dyslexia. And over 80% of those that are in prison can't read at all. They are called functioning illiterate. That means that they can get by day to day. They can go dig a ditch. They can go sell drugs, steal something, whatever, but they can't read. I mean, think about your everyday life today, right now, and how much you have to read. And we have principals and superintendents, and heck, for that matter, we have people down in Austin that feel like it's okay that a child doesn't read above 90% accuracy. That's mind-blowing. I mean, think about taking a contract that you have, black out 20% of the words. So now you're only being able to read 80% of it accurate. And then you're supposed to sign that as a contract. Would you do that?
No.
Not even close, but that's what we're saying is okay.
And here's the next question. How can we change that? What needs to happen to change that?
Well, right now we have some new dyslexia legislation or bills that are being proposed, because what we're asking the state to do is align their laws, the dyslexia handbook, the way that we treat dyslexia as a whole, align it with IDEA, which is a federal law. And that's really where it should be. That's where it's supposed to be, because that's IDEA says that dyslexia is a specialized or a specific learning disability. So, but we don't treat it that way. We treat it as a general ed, if you want to say condition, and they put you under a program called 504, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act. Well, that 504 will work as long as the district is doing everything that they're supposed to do, as long as they're following the laws, as long as they're providing the support for the family and the student properly, then you don't have any problems. But we don't see that. So
how many school districts do you know of that have taken they've been taking extra steps to change? Are there some, or is there none?
There are some. I mean, my home school district, about 5 years ago, or no, it hadn't been 5 years. It's been about 3 to 4 years ago, when I started really advocating strongly for my children and started digging into the numbers. And, for me, I was like, wait a second. You failed me, because I got no help. I was identified in 3rd grade and got zero help. And for every sense of the word, I should have been one of those statistics that ended up in prison. Very well could have, very easily. But when I found out what was happening today, and it wasn't much different than what it was back when I was in school, I was like, you can't have my kid. You're not going to do this to my kid. We're going to fix something. And I'm proud to say that my district went from identifying less than 1% of 57,000 kids to now they're in that 5% range. So they're over 3,000 kids. And they completely revamped their dyslexia program. They put a certified academic language therapist on every campus. We have over 72 campuses in our district. So, I mean, they're really taking a proactive role in going out there and searching for these kids. In searching for those kids, that's a whole nother thing. That is a federal law also called child find. The school districts are mandated to go out there and identify these kids that have learning disabilities, and they haven't been doing it.
And what's the name of the law again?
Child find.
Child find or fire?
Find. Find. Find.
That's a federal law?
It's a federal law. And now it's actually a state law. It was passed the last legislation session.
You see, because I think right now, some of the school districts where we're at, they're trying to just to say that they're working and they're going to pick out kids that are normal and they're going to stick them in the program and miss the other kids. Understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Just to fill in the gap, which can happen very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to be we need to be on top of this because number one, it affects everybody. It's not a problem as, how can I put it? But it's a problem that can lead to other problems. Understand what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, you
Like
go
you said,
back to if you can't read,
Yeah,
you literally can't function in today's society.
absolutely. So there's going to be a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot of changes, which I hope.
So it's a multi-pronged approach, right? So number one, we have to educate our lawmakers. And I don't understand why we have to explain to them why somebody with a disability needs protection under the law, whatever. So we have to educate our lawmakers. We have to educate our educators. I mean, this is where we're seeing a huge gap is in the higher ed. So when you get to college, thankfully now it's becoming more and more prevalent where the teachers or the instructors, professors, whatever, are teaching about dyslexia. Very small amount, but they are starting to get there. I mean, you and probably some of your viewers have heard probably some of the buzzwords going around right now, which is called the science of reading. And we're trying to align the education with all of the scientific research that's been done over the last 80 years. And then we have to teach these young teachers that are going into the classroom what they need to do to identify these kids, make sure that they're getting tested, and then how to support those kids. Because
Absolutely.
I mean, honestly, our teachers can make or break these children.
Absolutely. I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. I'm with you 100%. Our teachers can make and break us. And you're absolutely correct.
And I guess the last thing there, Paul, as far as what do we do to correct the situation that we have now, is the education of the parents and the students.
Can a parent ask for the test?
Absolutely. So on our website, empowerdyslexia.org, we have templates on there for testing. So you can go to our website, download the template, turn it into your school counselor. That gets the process started. They have 65 days from the day that you turn in your testing paperwork for them to get it done and back to you. And that's the reason why we're wanting everything aligned with IDEA, because that's where that 65-day time stamp comes from. Under 504, you don't have that. It's whenever we get to you. And again, if all districts were doing what they needed to do and supporting these kids right, it wouldn't make a hill of beans which side you go on.
Right. And that's what needs to happen, because sometimes you get some kids that you how can I put it? Their grades start dropping and you don't know why. Okay. You go home with a report card now that has D's and C's and a couple of F's, and they're going to get spanked because guess what? You're horse playing in school.
That's right.
Instead of a parent to say, you know what, let's look at your template, let's take a test, let's get this out of the way. And if there's a problem, let's deal with it now.
Yeah, don't wait. The only thing waiting is going to do is frustrate you it's going to frustrate your kid, and it's going to alienate one of the three silos: the school, the parent, or the child, and probably all three. When the dyslexia or when the learning disability raises its head. And we're just talking about what does it look like in school. We kind of brushed over what does it look like in life.
Right.
When you're an adult, when you're out there trying to get a job, when you're, we tend to say, okay, well, we've got spell check now, we've got computers, and your phone can read it to you and whatever else. But if you don't have an education, the way that systems are built now to turn in your application for a job, your resume is never going to be seen to begin with. If you have to go in and fill out paperwork, an application, and you can't spell, well, guess where your application is going to go?
No, there's a lot of stuff in here that, it's kind of like a domino effect, and the dominoes get bigger when towards the end of life. You know what I'm saying? It was very, very small, and all of a sudden you're getting bigger and bigger. So now you're 30 years old. Now they're no longer 1 inch. Now they're 10-foot high dominoes, and that's what happens and you're right. It makes sense now that you talk about how many people are in prison because of dyslexia. It makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
I mean, they have
no outlet. They need to do something. They're frustrated. They're going to do something wrong.
I talk about education as something that gives you opportunity. It opens up doors. It doesn't mean you're the best person for the job. It means that you have the ability to learn and you see stuff through. So if you can't produce those things, well, then the chances of you being a productive member of society are more on the slim side than not. And of course, I'm going to have a lot of people say, well, look at, all the famous dyslexics, Einstein and Richard Branson and this. I will tell you that each of those people had the proper support at home. They had the proper support somewhere. I promise you they didn't do it on their own. So, make sure that you're talking about it. Make sure that you understand that it's not something to be ashamed about. And you can be remediated. You can get out there and be taught to read and spell just like anybody else. And that's what we have to make sure that we're getting through to our teachers, our parents, and our children.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, I want to thank you for standing up. I want to thank you for your podcast. I want to thank you for enlightening many. If give me the name of the website again, so for parents to go ahead and contact you.
It's www.empowerdyslexia.org. And then we're on YouTube and Facebook and every audio app that you get your podcasts on. You name it, we're there.
Absolutely. And if you have anything else that you want to come forth, let me know, and let's push it out there, because this is something that we all have to help everybody really with dyslexia, and especially the young ones.
Absolutely.
And it's good about that template. We should do that and push it out. Go ahead.
I was sitting here thinking about, because you're down there you're in San Antonio area.
I'm in Laredo.
So the valley. And the other thing that I want to make sure that people understand is dyslexia, although people tend to think it's an English language problem, it is a language problem. It's a language problem. It's a miswiring in the language portion of your brain. So you can have dyslexia in Spanish, in Chinese, in German, and whatever. So don't allow anybody to tell you because you speak Spanish or your primary language is Spanish that you can't have dyslexia, because we're hearing that also. So I want to make sure that your viewers and listeners know that and do not accept that as a information.
As an answer. Because, number one, now imagine this, a person that only speaks Spanish is coming over here, needs to learn, has dyslexia. More likely he's going to have dyslexia learning English as well. So it's not going to be just in one language. It's going to be in continual language.
I work with a neuroscientist a lot, and he's told me about where they were doing studies where they brought a young man over from, a child over from Mexico City. They tested him in Mexico City in his native language, brought him here, tested him only in English. And guess what? He showed just as dyslexic in either language. And let me throw this at you. When they got done with the remediation and sent him back, they tested him in English here, sent him back, tested him in Spanish there. Do you know that his dyslexia got better in both languages? Why is that? Because it's not an English issue. It is a language issue.
Absolutely. Once more, Steve, I want to thank you for moving forward with this. Keep on the fight, and we'll get through legislation. And then more so, you can have the laws there, but we need to get through our trustees and make sure they know what they're doing, and teachers as well.
Well, that's where it takes all of us parents to make sure that we understand the laws better, as well or better than they do, and then we hold their feet to the fire.
Absolutely. Till next time, much peace.
Take care, brother.
Today, in America, more than 5.5 million men, women, and children train in a martial art regularly. Buitrón Academy has been serving Laredo for over 30 years now. Our adult classes are geared for producing the best in you, teaching you street-ready techniques. With the arts of Savate and Kinpo, you'll learn the traditions of these sciences of combat, as passed down professor to student.
Hello everybody, my name is Senior Grandmaster Alfredo Bandalan, owner of BDP, Bandalan the Siparis. I'd like to say a few words on Grandmaster Professeur Buitrón. He's a man of great integrity, a man of great knowledge of martial art. He's a master of Savate and master of Eskrima. He's a man that can help you to become what you want to be. He's a man that teaches people how to be somebody in life, how to work the world, how to be happy in this world. He's a man that I can say holds many integrity as well as in martial art. But I'd like to say this man has a radio station, does hunting all over the world, and he works with all kind of people, all walks of life. All I want to say, that Professeur Buitrón is a man that can help people to be somebody in life. I'd like to say aloha, thank you.
I am Grandmaster Michael Yearout of Original Hurones Criminal Federation here in Vallejo, California. Professor Paul Buitrón is an accomplished martial artist who has developed an understanding that as a caretaker in our martial arts, it is his responsibility to keep the art alive and in depth. He acknowledged that it is the students that give the art life. I hold his friendship and his continuing accomplishments in the art in the most highest regard. Thank you.
Come train at the best kept secret of Laredo. Give us a call for your free evaluation at 956-401-4868 or check out our website at savate.biz. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook.